Hi, everyone. Welcome to Monetize Your Message.
My name is Marie Parks, and this is my co-host, Jesse Honard, and we are the two faces of North Star Messaging and Strategy. And this show, Monetize Your Message, it's all about how you can use your message in your business to grow your business and to grow your revenue and really think about your message as part of your business strategy. And we've been talking for the first 7 episodes of the show all about messaging, and you can catch those old episodes, but we're doing something really special now. And so this is the second time we've had an opportunity to interview an amazing guest expert on the show. And so we're really excited to have Adrienne Dorison with us here today. Jesse is going to introduce Adrienne for us and herself.
Yeah, so if you guys don't know Adrienne, we're really excited to have her on today. She's one of our own mentors, and she's just an amazing person to know. For just kind of a quick overview, in the last 2 years, she has crushed $45,000 in debt, left her corporate job to run a now multi-six-figure business full-time, donated over $87,000, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, to meaningful causes, and helped hundreds of other ordinary humans achieve extraordinary results. So thank you so much for being with us here today, Adrienne.
Yay, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me and for dealing with my tech glitches.
Yeah, we're so okay. We were having our own live tech issues. It's part of the fun, right?
Yeah, but we're here now.
Yes, totally. So I think one of the things that I find most interesting, because I've followed you for almost at least 1.5 years of your 2+ years. And so it's been really
6 months of which you were scared of me.
Yes. Terrified.
We've gotten over that hurdle.
Which we can talk about because that's bad messaging on my part.
Well, and I think part of that was because I was like, oh, she's so far ahead of me. But it's interesting because your message has totally evolved throughout that 2 years and changed. And I find it really fascinating seeing that process as it happened live. So I'd love if you could kind of bring our viewers up to speed on what your message was and what it's become and what that process was like.
Yeah. So, and I think being part of like the evolution so closely, sometimes I don't know how drastic it was, right? It's kind of like when you have a child or a dog, like you don't notice how fast they're growing because you're with them every day. Whereas if you see like a drastic change, you're like, oh my God, you grew 7 inches. I feel the same way about my own messaging. I'm like, oh, but this is who I always was. Like, this is what I've always done and what my expertise always was, and what our core values always were. But now I think I'm talking about them in a more outward way, and I'm more confident in them and like have a more clear, although it's not necessarily fully clear still, more clear view of like who I specifically want to work with and what I want to specifically help them do and who I do not want to work with. And I don't think that would have been possible without all of the in-betweens, right? Like I had to go through all of the other pieces to get here. But initially it was just focused on helping people grow their businesses and marketing that message. And I went through some phases, or what I like to call seasons, and I never like suffocated my creativity or like what I wanted to talk about. So I went through a season of like talking about sales. And then I went through a season of like talking about sales funnels, because those were the things that like lit me up, even though yes, they will help you grow your business, right? So ultimately it all tied back into my core message of like helping people get better results in less time. And that gave me like some offshoots of what I could actually talk about. And now, like more specifically talking about some of the behind the scenes of our business in terms of generosity and how we are earning more so that we can give more back. Because once you reach some financial security, your goals can become fairly monotonous or empty or lack motivation and drive. And so I want to be working with people and also be using myself as a model and an example of social impact and how we can use the work that we're doing to not only impact our clients' lives, but also impact the world in really meaningful ways through giving back. And so those are the people that I want to work with. And in the beginning, I wasn't necessarily excluding people who weren't doing that. And now it's just become very clear. I think also with like the marketing and messaging that's happening in the online space, like who I don't necessarily want to be associated with, or who I don't really want to work with, or who isn't going to be a good fit for me, has become very clear.
So do you think that it is kind of only through trial and error, or like just, trying, working with different people or different audiences or populations, that it's, you're able to sort of start figuring out like what are your red flags, or like what is your green light?
I think that's one way that will give you a ton of clarity. I think the other thing that you can save a ton of time, like a ton of the time, because I knew that was always who I wanted to be working with, I think, but lacked the confidence to say that, right? So if you have the confidence, and maybe I can help give some people the confidence from hearing it from someone else, that by niching and being super specific and being really clear on who you want to work with, and not fearing leaving other people out, or that, but what if there's someone else who doesn't want to create, really big social impact, and they still want to work with me, and I can necessarily help them. Well, if I would kind of like have had the confidence back then that I have now, which I don't know if someone could get that, but if they could hear that from me telling them that you're actually probably blocking some of the right people from working with you by trying to serve all the people versus just being really confident and clear on who those right people are.
Yeah,
totally. I love that. And I love what you said too about like once you hit those goals, what's next? Because I think a lot of people, especially in the beginning, are very goal driven. Like, I want to get out of debt. I want to, afford the house, or pay off my student loans, or, just live a certain lifestyle. But then they get it, and it's like, okay, now what? What's next? And is it almost selfish of me to want to make more money after you hit that point?
Totally. And some of the things, like I work with a lot of, whether it be like high 5-figure, 6-figure, 7-figure entrepreneurs in my work, and some of my peers that I've been, focused on asking them some of these questions around their motivation and goals and financial metrics. And I think that it's hard to even see when you haven't hit like the financial security point, right? Like it's hard to see or like imagine that you could get bored from making more money, right? Like, or get bored from like hitting your goals. And that seems like a really silly thing to even say, but it becomes empty, right? Like once you have all of your basic needs taken care of, and you feel like you're at a point of financial security, or you have all of the things in place that you need. A lot of these 6, 7, 8-figure people that I've spoken to are now either like, okay, what do I do next? Do I sell this business? Do I leave this business? Do I do something else? I'm not as motivated. And so I think that when you can create other success metrics, that will help motivate you for longer, right? Or for the right things, because it's not that you need to like shift and do something totally different. It's that you need something to get you more motivated to continue doing what you're really great at. So sometimes that's hard for people to see if they haven't hit that financial security yet, which I totally understand. But I think it is important to have other success metrics inside your life and business, whether that's giving goals or free time goals, or all of the above, hobbies that you travel, etc., investment goals, savings goals, because otherwise you'll be a little bored.
Yeah, we go through an activity with our clients where they come up with a vision statement, or like a vision for their business. And a lot of people do that, but we also tell them, like, think about yourself. Like, okay, so you want to, maybe your vision right now is to replace your 9-to-5 income and to be the go-to person within this particular niche. But like, okay, what happens when you get that? What's next? so what is it that you want for your business, for yourself? And I love what you're saying, success match. I know you're like starting a movement around a specific success metric, and coming from a nonprofit background, I'm like really excited about what you're doing. And it's something that's important to us too. So do you want to launch into the movement that you're creating?
Yeah, so we're talking a lot more about earning more to give more, and the success metric being give goals instead of just revenue goals, right? Because revenue goals can sometimes feel either a little boring, or like you don't have as much motivation necessarily once you've either hit those, or maybe you haven't hit them and it feels like a little draining to try and hit that revenue goal again. And so you're losing motivation, right? And so instead of thinking just in terms of revenue goals, we're thinking in terms of give goals. And I don't really care how you hit that, but and so that's where creativity comes in, because I'm working on this myself this year. We have a give goal of $100,000 for this year. So in the past couple years, we've given over $90,000, and so that would really be like more than doubling, like in a 1 year that we would do in this year. And so that means I don't really care percent-wise how I do it, or if I do a fundraising, like we've tossed out different ideas which help us get more creative in our own business. Like, maybe we'll run a campaign where we put all our courses on sale, but 100% of the proceeds go towards our nonprofit partner, right? Like, I'm not making any revenue, but that's not the main goal, right? The main goal is the give goal. And also making sure that your business is still sustainable and running, which I have made sure that it is in terms of revenue generation. And so that's like part of the fun, but that's going to keep you motivated for way longer and really connect you to an impact that you can have outside of yourself, outside of your business, that'll keep you going for much, much longer and make you feel like the work that you're doing is really important, because it is. And sometimes we forget that. When we're just focused on ourselves, especially if you already have your basic needs taken care of, right? So I felt the guilt that Jessie was talking about. I felt the guilt of like, I already have everything that I need in terms of my basic needs. I feel like I'm living the life that I want to live. Like, I didn't need or even want more money for myself. Like, I wasn't going to buy a bigger house. Like, I wasn't going to spend more money on food. I already do the things entertainment wise that I want. So I was like, I don't need more money. Like, what would I even do with it at this point? So for me, like having those things taken care of, I felt guilty, like asking for more or feeling like I needed to grow the business even more. But now I do like feel this real personal responsibility and motivation and excitement and passion to grow the business, because I'm not just supporting myself, but also supporting my team members and the lifestyles that they want to create, and I can create jobs for them, right? So if I would stay in this silo of just running a super slim business by myself, I could probably make more money for myself, but that's not the goal, right? So the goal is to also provide employment for people that do really great work. And so we do that on our team. And then the giving goals of how are we impacting the world in a bigger way, not directly through our work, but through financial means and support, that we can support some other nonprofit partners who need that money so desperately to do the work that they do. And they do it way better than me, right? So like, I'm really great at making the money. I'll just give it to you, right? Like,
totally, yeah. And you've chosen a particular nonprofit to support. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we support the Adventure Project. You can find them at theadventureproject.org, and they support job creation in developing countries. So I just went with them last week to Kenya and saw some of the work that the money is helping to support. And Adventure, the Adventure Project, they're basically adding venture to these local organizations who are creating training programs, skills trainings to help entrepreneurs in these developing countries, which is way more meaningful than aid or handouts that people they're thankful for. It's not that they're not appreciative of charitable handouts, but people want a job, right? Like they want to be able to support their families long term. And so that's what the Adventure Project does. And since we are entrepreneurs and the people that I work with are business owners and entrepreneurs, I know that there's a strong connection to the work that we're doing over there in developing countries too.
So do you have any thoughts on if someone's listening who is interested in doing this with a business? Maybe they have some, passion nonprofits that they really care about, or maybe not, but they just want to get back in some way. Do you have any thoughts around selecting a nonprofit that A, would be a good steward of the funds, but B, would mesh with their message and their business?
Yeah. So in some of my upcoming programs and stuff, we're going to take people through a more full, complete process to really unpack this stuff. But I would just start out with, making a list of causes that you feel passionate about, and you don't have to just limit it to one, just brain dump all the ones that you feel passionate about, and then do a separate list of ones that your audience or community might be passionate about, right? You can start seeing where some of those might line up. The other thing is, doing your research in terms of the organization itself, right? So there's a ton of organizations out there, ton of nonprofits, ton of for-purpose organizations. And I think that is overwhelming to people, which is why I want to help take people through this process of vetting and making sure they're checking the right things and making sure they're, connecting with the founders or, people inside that organization to understand what to look for. Are they reporting their financials out to you? Where is the money actually going? Do you believe in not just the intention, but the actual impact that they're making? And is it clear what the impact is? So this last trip that I just went on to Kenya was really to document and hear stories and get data on what is the actual impact and are we making an impact versus just having really great intentions. So there's a lot of organizations that have great intentions, but the impact is not there. So it's a lot of this makes us privileged people feel really good about giving, but it's not actually helping those local communities or causes that it's going to. So doing the due diligence to make sure so that you feel really good about supporting that organization and feel really good about sending your money there, because I think that's a big hesitation for people. They're like, well, I want to, but I don't really know where my money is going and how it's being used. So I'm just going to hold on to my money forever. Right. But I think just starting with lists of what do you feel really passionate about? Or even another good way to think about this is what are some things that maybe you're really pissed off about in the world? Because that can help fire you up in terms of causes that you might want to support, right? So things that just really drive you crazy, whether it's a political thing or a conservation thing or a human thing or a social cause, etc. Those are really great places to start in terms of making your list in terms of what you care about. And it's not just what you care about, because I care about all of those things, right? But what do you care enough about to do something about is the most important piece. And I don't care enough about all of those things to actually do something about them or to feel that I'm having the biggest impact, as well as what does my community potentially care about? And that to me is also important, something that they will feel wow, this is a really powerful movement or cause that we are excited to support. But I don't think that's the sole thing in terms of making the decision, because when you select organizations and share with with your community and with your audience that, this is who you're supporting, that shows your audience what some of your values are. And if they don't align with those, I think it's important that you know that, right? So for example, if you're going to be supporting an LGBT organization and you're someone in your audience is really offended by that, well, great. They probably aren't a great client for you anyways, right? So it's this allows you to show people what you really care about and helps them make a decision on working with you that I think you have an opportunity to provide. So, and it weeds the wrong people out. Just knock some stuff over.
I love that. It's like it's a filtering. Yeah, because I think it's hard to tell sometimes if someone may seem like they're a really good fit as a client, and then it isn't until you get into things that you realize that maybe it wasn't as great of a fit as you initially thought. But it's almost like you have this filter immediately set up of, this is what I care about, this is what I'm passionate about, and if you're not, then sorry. It's
like a forward-facing, like, you know, showcasing your values. And that's really, we want to, like, any mentor or investment that I've made in someone else or a role model that I have, I can look at them and say, like, why do I like them? And I can start like identifying their values, and I'm like, oh, because I'm very aligned with their values, right? And the same thing is true even just with giving or generosity in general. I didn't know how much my audience or my clients would care about that, but it would make sense because it's something I care about, and my clients share the same values as me, typically, a lot of the same values, right? So it's important for me to share that, and that's why this messaging has gone even more forward-facing, because what used to happen is on the back end, my clients would sign a contract which showed them, hey, 10% of your investment in me is going to X organization. Or in the beginning, I would actually allow them to select the organization of their choice. And the money would go towards that organization. Now it all goes to the Adventure Project right now. But my clients were coming to me and saying, I was already like ready to sign up with you and excited to work with you. But then like you showed me this on the contract and I was like even more excited. And I want to know, like, why didn't you tell me that sooner? And I was like, I didn't know you cared, right? Like that was just something for me to share with you in our onboarding process of, hey, 10% is going towards an organization because I want to instill in you that you can give, that you can start giving now, which people feel so strapped. They feel like I'm not making enough money yet to start giving. And I'm initially like right off the bat showing them, yes, you are, right? Like I'm showing them you're already making enough. We just have to start making room for it in your heart and in your mind and in your capacity. And so that was actually the reason I started sharing this more in my forward messaging and my outreach, because I was hearing from my own clients, like, you need to talk about this more. This is something we care about. This is something that other people care about and will cause the right people to work with you. And I was like, oh, okay, I hear you, you know? So that was the whole reason it became more of the main focus versus just like on the back burner.
Yeah,
totally.
So we talk about messaging obviously a lot. It's
kind of our thing.
It's kind of your thing, yeah.
But I think I want to draw this distinction between a message, which really is sort of just like, this is clearly who I am and what I do and why it matters, and you know what I'm known for. It's that frontward facing marketing and message and all that you put out there. But I want to draw a distinction between that and a movement, because I mean, what you're doing is like creating an army of people who hold your values, right? And you're equipping them to like actually act upon that. So do you want to talk a little bit, like, have you felt like there's a distinction there? Do you feel like you kind of approach it a little differently, or like, how has that felt sort of transitioning?
I'm smiling because I've never thought of it that way. And I really appreciate you reflecting that for me, because sometimes like we're so in our own, in our own head and space and not knowing how it's being received by other people. So as much as I would love to say, I am creating, I guess, a movement, because I want not only the people that end up working with me one-on-one, but people that are in my community to share this message with other people, that they can start giving now, and that they should start giving now, and that they're going to feel better about themselves and the impact that they say they want to create if they can start taking action and doing that. And the first piece of that is earning more money in their business, which I can directly help with, right? Like that's part of my expertise. But I've never, I love your distinction between like messaging and a movement. And I do feel like it is part of my messaging, right? It's like my through line. But I would love to create a movement. And I guess what I would say, a movement is more about other people, right? Than just a message, right? So a message is, I think, more about me and who I am and what I stand for. Whereas the movement is about empowering and equipping, like you said, everyone else to say, you got to do something about this. This isn't just mine to hold, right? Like, this is me sharing with you what I know you're capable of and how I know you can most impact the world. And I want that for you because I know it will be also very fulfilling internally. I think that that's where happiness comes from, not just more and more and more things or more and more and more money. Both of my minimalists here will agree. But yeah, I love the idea, and I don't think it was actually intentional, but I'm going to embrace it more now that you said that, because it is more about other people and allowing those other people to share that message as well, that it's not just my message to share. It's something that I want to ripple effect for sure.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, those are the best movements that get started when they're kind of unintentionally created as a result of this message that you keep sharing because you're so passionate about the message that it becomes a key component of that movement.
Yeah. A lot of these things you can't force, right? So you said like they happen unintentionally. I think sometimes we try so hard to like force something that like nothing ever comes to us. And then once you just like allow it to be, it happens more organically. Like I started this business very organically because I was creatively suffocated at my corporate job, and I started a blog, and the blog was never meant to be monetized. It was just meant to be helpful to other people who might want to improve their performance and become more efficient and better at what they do and better themselves. And then people started reaching out, and I started working with people one-on-one. And so like that was all organic, right? It was like unintentional that I accidentally started a business. And it was great once I knew how to like, okay, now I know what's possible. I'm going to hit the gas and run forward with this. But same thing with this earning more to give more movement. It was not necessarily intentional in terms of a movement, but more about like, I'm going to start sharing this more vocally because these are the people I want to work with. These are the people that I want to call in to work with me and what I want for my community. And so I hope everyone treats it as a movement, runs with it, because I know the effects of what can happen when you start doing that in your life and in your business. So
totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very much win-win-win all around. So I know a few people are watching, and if you guys have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. But I had a question, which I have thoughts on this, but I'd like to hear yours, Adrienne. So you kind of touched on this, right? But like, what do you do? What do you say to someone who doesn't feel like they have the revenue they want in their business? They don't feel like they are where they want to be financially in their business, but they have a passion for a cause and they want to do something. What advice do you have?
Grow your business. Work with me and I'll grow your business. No. So I think, and this is something I've heard because I've asked the question to a few people even over the last few days of like, what's stopping you if you are not yet giving back in your business? And I was asking 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs this question yesterday. And the number one answer that I got was profit margins. That's what's stopping me. And I'm like, like that's a really interesting answer from people that are already earning 6 and 7 figures, right? So to me, it's like baking it into your business model is important. And I think that a lot of people are maybe watching this and thinking, oh, I'm not ready yet. And I just want to encourage you to start from day one. I started giving when I was in debt. And that was actually the thing that helped me get out of debt, was really the law of relativity, right? Like, wow, like my situation comparatively to other people's, like I have so much I can absolutely give to these other people, and I can live on some minimal expenses, and I can pay off my debt. And I did that very quickly. And I think that giving was the one thing that gave me that perspective to be able to do that faster, because I realized how much I already had in my life. And so, many people start thinking, oh, I need to be earning $1 million to be able to give away X number of dollars, or to be able to give away 10%. And the truth is 10% is 10% of anything, right? So whether you're earning $10 in your business, you can give away one, or if you're earning $100,000, you can give away 10,000, right? So, or if you're earning $1 million, you can give away 100,000. And it doesn't have to be 10%. So that's the other thing that I want to share with people, is that I've seen some really creative ways that people give back inside their business models. And that's something I want to encourage and help amplify, is like, there's not one right or wrong way to do this. You get to be creative with your own business. It's your business. But one of the organizations that I'm familiar with, they donate 1% of their sales. And while that might seem like a lot, like, it's not a lot for them, because it's just 1% of the sale, right? So it doesn't hit them hard in terms of revenue. But as they continue to grow their business, that makes huge impacts. Every dollar that they're donating counts towards these organizations that are doing really great work in the world. So I think it's just about getting creative and what you're comfortable, not even what you're comfortable with, because you're probably not comfortable with anything. But once you start doing it, and once you start looking at those numbers, you will be more empowered to be like, how much more can I give away, right? Like, how can I do more of this? Because you see the good work that you're doing. The other thing is knowing your numbers, right? So if you're feeling like, oh, I don't know, then, and this is not to call anyone out specifically, but someone had said, like, oh, my profit margins, I don't feel I have the space. And I said, well, if you don't mind, like, what are your profit margins? And they didn't know. So to me, that's like, okay, that's exactly where I start with my clients, and in the program that's going to be coming out. It's like, we need to know our numbers and have a really good understanding of where our opportunities are, where the problems are, so that we can fix them and grow and increase the revenue and increase the profitability, so that you can feel really good about giving more and feel like your business is sustainable, because that's also very important to me. Not just that you give once and then can't do it again, but that you're setting yourself up for long-term sustainable giving and sustainable profitability inside that business. So that was a really long-winded answer, but
it was a great answer. We like the answer. And I think it's really important too, because you're right, so many people have this passion and this drive and this need to give back in some way, but they also feel almost weighed down by this need to hit certain numbers before they can do that. Yeah. Whereas if you bake it in right from the beginning, like you said, it's already there. It's already a part of the plan.
It's already happening, right? And then you can adjust things as needed based on knowing that numbers in your projection line, right? So when I look at my projection sheet, that's in there. So if we got to cut a different expense out, or if we need to earn more money or sell a different offer or whatever, that's in the expense sheet, right? So it's like we're counting on that exiting the business from the beginning, right? And like I said, like, just getting creative, and it doesn't have to be 10%. You can start with 1%. Just start, right? Just start and start flexing that muscle, I think, because it'll get stronger over time. Because now I'm like, how can we give 50%, right? And then growing from there, like, how can we still be operational and sustainable while continuing to increase that? Because I've found, for me, that's where I find most of my joy. Like I said, if I can have a fixed income for myself, I already know that, like, my desires are taken care of. I'm not creating a sacrificial life. I'm taken care of, right? I don't want that for people. I don't want you to martyr yourself for a cause necessarily, but I have what I need. So how can I continue to grow the percent that we're pouring back into other organizations? That takes time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally full circle too to what you were saying about, like, that's the motivation you need to grow your business. Like, I need to close this sale so that I can give this much more.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that, one of the things that is so important is selecting a cause that you feel really passionate about, because otherwise it will, again, feel like whatever, you don't care that much. And if you can see the work that you're doing, or serve with your hands and like physically serve as well within that organization. I think that creates even more attachment and like realness to the work that you're doing, whether that's local or, just connecting further with the founders and the partners and figuring out like how you can better understand what your money is going towards. Because I think that will that's further motivated me. I'm like, oh, now I see it. I'm ready, right? And for myself, that wasn't necessarily as motivating in terms of getting a new car. Like, you should see our car. It's so bad. But it's not something I care about, right? It's not something I value. Whereas the raising money for organizations that I do value has been a huge motivator.
So for someone who is interested in getting into this and is interested in following your movement and being a part of it, you mentioned this program that you're developing. Where can they go to find out more about it and to kind of start baking this into their business?
That's a good question. Well, number one, they should join the email list. So if you just go to adriennedorison.com and you go sign up for the email list, there'll be access to these programs that we'll be sharing. I don't know if you can see what I just posted in the chat.
We can add it in the comments afterwards.
Yeah, if you add that link. Yeah, if you add that link, which is also accessible on my website. If you go to How to Work With Me, and there's a wait list for this program that will be coming out. We're going to be doing some early bird opportunities soon, and then we'll be launching the bigger program later in June to open up and start running in July. So this will be a beta program. We're going to be running it for the first time in its entirety. So if you want to hear more about that, just sign up for the wait list, or sign up for if you're already on my email list, you'll get some of these opportunities. But we'll be talking more about that for sure.
Awesome. And remind us once again how, if we want to get involved in the Adventure Project, where to go and what to do.
Yes. So if you are interested in supporting job creation in developing countries, you can go to theadventureproject.org. And it's just how you think it would be spelled, theadventureproject.org. And there's a place to learn more about it and to give. And we'll definitely be sharing more stories about what I saw in Kenya, because that's really what we were doing, was kind of checking up with the entrepreneurs there and hearing their stories, which is so powerful. So if you're on my email list, you'll be hearing more about their stories too.
Yeah, and you did a pretty amazing live stream earlier talking about some of those experiences. So we'll link to that as well. So if anyone wants to catch the replay and hear a little bit firsthand about what you experienced on that trip.
Yeah, it was pretty intensive. So prepare if you watch that live stream.
No, it was great. It was great. I loved hearing about your experiences.
Yeah, so it was awesome. So if you have interest in learning more, those are the best places to go for sure.
Awesome. Well, bottom line, it is never too early or late to start building, giving into your business. Thank you so much for inspiring us, for giving us some practical ways to start doing this, Adrienne. I know this has been really exciting for us, but hopefully for everyone watching too.
Well, thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff and just empowering people that it's important for you to, number one, stay in your lane and earn as much money as possible doing what you're really great at, and then give back to causes that you really care about. So it's the twofold, right? You can't have one without the other, in my opinion. I guess you could, but I wouldn't recommend it.
It is not the recommended Adrienne track.
No, not a recommended dose.
Well, thank you again so much. We'll post all of those links that we talked about. We'll post them in the kind of permanent replay post. And if you were watching this and you got something out of it, we encourage you to share it with your audience so that you can help spread Adrienne's movement.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Have a really great day.